Next up, bag number 7. Let's find bag number 7, and here we are. This is going to be the rear arms, and we're going to open the bag here. In this bag, you'll have the 4 rear arms and 4 hinge pins. So open up these hinge pins as well, and there we go. Very important. The lower hinge pins are the long ones, the upper hinge pins are the short ones. Do not drop the short hinge pin into the lower holes. You're going to have a bad time. You have to try and fish it out, shake it out, whatever you need to do. Lower is long, that is all you need to remember. So orientate your chassis in line with how it is in the instruction manual, and then just lay out the arms on the table. Left and right doesn't matter, but you need to make sure that the screw hole for the lower shock mounting position on the lower arms is facing outwards. Let's do the lower arms first with the longest pins. I'm going to do side by side. So with the arm lined up with the bosses below, longest pin, lower hole, slot it through just like that, and then the same with the opposite suspension arm, getting it lined up like so. Longest pin, lowest hole, and then just push that in like so. That's the lower arms installed. Next we're going to be doing the upper arms, and these do also have a direction as well. Left or right doesn't matter, but the orientation does matter. They need to be the clearance notch towards the rear of the vehicle. So offer them up to the upper hinge pin hole, and then just slot in the short pins at the top, and then the same on the opposite side. Lining up the cutout for what will be the shock installation a little bit later. That is bag 7 done. On to the next one, bag number 8, and it is the front arm set. Let's find bag number 8. Exact same process as the rears, but this time we're going to be installing the steering links as well. So you will have some screws to install as well as the hinge pins. Again, as the rear, lower is the long one, upper is the short one. Doesn't matter which way around the arm goes on the vehicle, but front to back is important. Again, the part with the hole for the shock mount needs to face out away from the vehicle. Longest in the lowest hole. It's actually at this point where I should mention that the pins aren't secured either end yet. So when you are working on the vehicle, I would do not what I just did and just keep it flat on the surface you're working on. It'll just make sure that you're not going to lose a pin and an arm fall off while you're doing this interim step process. Just line up with the boss there, wherever the hole is. That is the lower arms installed, and same with the upper arms. They don't matter whether it's left or right, but the orientation does matter. The gap needs to be towards the front. That is going to be the gap in which the shock position is going to be. And then the same for the other side of the vehicle. Step 34 is where we will install the steering linkages. So I would recommend just rolling the car over like so and working on it from underneath. It doesn't matter which way around these go, it's the same left and right, but I'll do this side first. You want to get the ball through the slot in the arm, line up the screw, and then screw downwards. Again, as always, just snug that screw down. There's no need to crank down on any of the screws on this vehicle. And then doing the other side, screw down from the top and lock it in place. Step 34 is complete. We can roll the truck back over, again making sure to not rotate it to the front or the rear, which could cause the pins to drop out. Leave them nice and flat, and then we're on to the next step. Bag number 9 is the diffs. We have pre-installed these diffs for you. It is a messy process, so it's going to make things so much easier. I'm going to drop the diffs onto the table and then get all the other parts out of the bag. As again, just checking everything's there. We have the front and rear gearbox cases and a pot of grease. Just drop this one out of the bag as well. And then finally we have the screws. Now we have included some gear grease for you to use. It's going to just keep that transmission lubricated. You can use anything like the 1.5 millimeter driver just to paint grease onto some of the teeth. It doesn't need to be spread too thickly, and it doesn't need to cover every single tooth, because as the diff runs in, the teeth will just spread the grease around each of the teeth, so we can paint it on like this. Now, I would recommend having some paper towel or tissue available after you've done this job. It's not the cleanest of jobs to do, so that's going to cover that one nicely. Drop the diff into the vehicle. It can only go in the vehicle one way, so just drop it in like so. And then we're going to install the diff cover. So it does line up and capture the upper pins, lining up and slotting in, just wiggle it into place like this. And then we're going to install the 4 screws to keep the front diff in place. Now we're going to follow the exact same process for the rear differentials. We're going to get my 1.5 driver, just get a bit of grease on here, paint the teeth exactly how we did on the front diff, and then just install it. It can only go in the car one direction, so line it up with the slot for the ring gear and then slide it in like so. Getting the rear diff cover, locking that in place, and then we're going to install the 4 diff cover retaining screws. Put the lid on the pot of grease, keep that for later, always useful. On to bag number 10, and this is the front knuckles and front drive shafts. We have the drive shafts, the left and right front hubs, and then the small bag contents here with the screws, hexes, pins and bearings. Just check everything is out those bags and we're good to go. The left and right is the exact same process, just mirrored. We're going to start with the left side now. So get the drive shaft, put a bearing over the top of the steel axle, and then we're going to insert the drive shaft into the back of the hub, through the hub, and then we're going to install the outer bearing on the outside over the axle into the hub. Now we're going to find the pin, line it up with the hole in the axle, position it centrally, and then we're going to get the drive hex, align the slot with the drive pin, push it downwards and click it into place. Keeping this pinched in place, we're going to find the set screw, put it on the end of the 1.5 driver, and then we're going to screw in the set screw into the hex to lock this hex onto the axle. It only needs to be snugged down because the grub screw isn't the thing that transmits the torque. The torque goes through the pin. The grub screw is only there to keep the hex in place. That is one side done. We're going to repeat the exact same process for the opposite side. So bearing onto the drive shaft and bearing into the back side of the axle, bearing on top of the drive shaft, and then into the hub like so. Find the pin, line it up in the hole, and just keep it aligned centrally. Get the wheel hex, line up the slot with the pin, push it down onto the axle like so. Find the set screw and then put it on your 1.5 driver, and then install into the threaded hole. It will go in nicely if you are lined up properly, and then just snug it down. Now we're installing them on the vehicle. Let's just line up the screws. There are 4 flathead or countersink screws, and there are 2 socket head screws. The countersink screws are the ones that go in the upper and lower knuckle screws here. These do not need to be tightened down hard at all. There is a left and a right hub, and you want to make sure that the high part of the steering is facing towards the rear of the car. So align the hubs like so, and then you want to first of all put the drive shaft bone into the out-drive cup there. Align the bottom ball with the slot for the bottom ball, and then the upper ball next. Find a flat head or countersink screw, screw it down from the top, which will help you to get that in place. This doesn't need to be screwed down hard. Snugged in nicely is all it needs to be. This one doesn't do any load bearing, this screw. Another flathead countersink screw from the bottom to secure it from the underside. Again, another screw which does not need to be tight. Finger tight is perfect just for this one. And then you want to install the ball into the steering knuckle slot here. Get the ball lined up by eye. Put the screw in from the top to get it lined up and secure. And then once that's through, you can then screw in this steering ball Again, snugging down, no need to crank this one. Now we're going to repeat the process for the opposite side. So get the drive shaft lined up with the diff out drive here. Slot the lower arm into the lower slot and the top arm into the upper slot. Flathead countersink screws in from the top and snugged down, and then install the lower screw into the lower slot here. And then finally we're going to install the steering link on the opposite side. Now again, lining up that steering ball can be difficult to do, but that's going to slot nice into there. Screw down from the top once it is aligned, and then screw down here. That's going to complete step number 39. Now on to bag number 11. In here we have the rear hubs. So this is the rear end process of what we've just done. Again, bag empty. We've got axles and drive shafts in here. There we go, good to go, good to go. We've got the rear hubs here, and then a bunch of screws, hexes and bearings and pins. Similar process to the front. We're going to grab the rear axle and a bearing, install the bearing onto the axle, and then install the axle and the bearing into the backside of the hub. From the outside end, we're going to install the bearing downwards over the axle and into the hub again, and then it's going to be pin through the hole in the axle, lining up to be central, drive hex down over that, aligning the slot, looking for that set screw on the end of your 1.5mm key, and then just screwing in from the screw hole. Again, working its way down through that thread lock, and then we're just going to snug it down once we get to the axle. That's going to keep that hex secure. Then repeat the process for the other side. So we've got bearing over the axle, axle and bearing into the back of the hub, bearing from the outside over the axle and into the hub, pin through the hole, aligning it to the center, drive hex over the top, aligning the drive hex slot with the pin, finding the set screw to then secure all of this together, finding the hole for the screw, winding in the screw to the hole here, and then just again snugging it down. No need to crank down this one. That's the rear hubs complete. That now moves us on to step 42. This is where we install them on the rear arms. There is no set left or right hub, but there is an important thing to pay attention to, and that is the direction of the upper screw. So we're going to get the drive shaft first of all and make sure the drive shaft is installed into the drive cup to make sure we get drive that is all nicely installed. Then we're going to grab one of the hubs and make sure the drive shaft is in the hub drive cup as well. Now we're going to lower it down into the gap in the arm. Now we're going to look for the two screw pins here, and we're going to use the screw pin from the backside through the hole, the outboard hole on the arm, then through the hub, and then we're going to screw it in for that final part of the installation. Again, this is a non-load bearing screw, so we just want to just screw it in and snug it down while ensuring that the drive shaft is still in the cup at both ends. We're now going to install the upper camber link screw. On the right side of the vehicle, this screw comes in from the front. On the left side of the vehicle, this screw comes in from the rear. So I'm doing the left side right now, so I'm going to install this screw from the back and screwing up to secure the upper camber link. Now we're going to repeat that exact same process on the opposite side. So get the drive shaft, put it into the output cup so it's aligned. Make sure the output cup on the drive shaft axle is also aligned. Lower it into the outboard slot of the arm, and then put that screw pin through that lower arm pivot. Just squeezing it through just to make sure it goes through okay. Screwing this up to be finger tight is what we need. Now for the right side of the vehicle, this screw on the hub goes in from the front side, so bring the upper arm down in place, and then we're going to screw through from the front side for this rear hub. Can be a little bit tricky, but it will go through with a bit of perseverance. Again, this is a non-load bearing screw, so we don't need to crank this one down. And with that installed, that completes step number 43. On to bag number 12. This is the shocks. We're going to open this bag now. Empty out the bag contents. Be careful to keep everything secure. The 4 shocks will all be the same shock. The difference between front and rear is due to the build process. Opening up the other bag now, making sure that all of the clips, spacers and springs stay on the table so we don't lose anything just now. So we're going to have 4 springs in here. All the springs are the same. So we're going to lay the parts out so we know what we've got. We're going to have 4 spring retainers, 4 lower shock spring retainers. There will be 2 shock spacer clips and a selection of screws. We're going to build the front shocks first. So we're going to take one of the shocks and install one of the shock spring retainers, then install the shock spring, and then we're going to install the lower shock spring retainer by pre-compressing the shock spring, clipping it over the shock shaft, and then allowing it to sit down with the spring attached. That's a front shock. We're going to build one more front shock, so I'm going to grab another one of those spring retainers, slide it up through the shock body, add a spring, put a bit of preload on the spring, add the shock clip, shock spring perch, and that is another front shock. The rear shocks have a slightly different shock preload, and we're going to install this now. So it is the open-ended clip that is the preload spacer. Grab one of the shock bodies, install the preload clip, then install the shock seating clip, and then install a spring, and then install the lower shock spring retainer exactly the same way as you've done it before. Set that to one side and then just repeat the process for another rear shock. So you can actually install these open-ended clips after the spring has been installed, but it's just easier to slide it over the shock body during initial assembly, and then follow it up with a spring retaining clip, then the spring, preload the spring, pop in the lower shock spring retainer, and then pop that back down over that lower shock ball, and that is another rear shock. Moving on to step 45, we're going to take our bare chassis and we're going to install the rear shocks first. So any of the 2 rear shocks, we can install the upper one first using the shock retaining screw, one through the top side, and install it into the rear shock tower from the rear like so. Then install a same shock screw on the lower side for the lower arm, through the bottom shock ball and then into the hole on the arm. Repeat the process on the other side. I'm going to go straight in with a power driver just to save a little bit of time on that top side. So just line up the shock with the shock tower and then just drive it home. Now we can flip the car around and install the front shocks, exact same way as we installed the rears. The fronts are the shocks without the extra preload spacer, so just go ahead, install those front shocks in the upper shock mount and into the lower shock mount with the lower shock mounting ball into the front shock mounting hole, and then do the remaining front shock. And then with both front shocks installed, that is step number 46 complete. On to step number 47 in bag 13. So bag 13 contains front and rear bumpers and screw mounting hardware. So I'm going to chop these screws out here, make sure the packets are empty. We have pre-installed the bumper loops on the front and rear. They look visually similar, so we made it simple for you. We have two different types of screws in this bag. We've got the longer cap heads. These are the ones that go from the top, and the flat, shorter flathead screws or countersink screws, they go from the bottom. We'll install the front bumper first onto the front of the vehicle, kind of just offer it back so it goes over the pins and slides into place. You can install the cap head screws from the top side through the back of the bumper loop and down into the front gearbox cover. And then for the other screw, flip the chassis over and install the 4 lower screws. These are the shorter countersink screws, flathead screws, just 4 from the bottom. Use a power driver just to get these in a bit quicker. Again, another part of the truck where you just don't need to crank these screws down. Just being snug is perfectly fine. Just finish them off with the hand tool just to make sure that I'm happy with their tightness. Step number 47 is done. On to step number 48 is repeat the process for the rear bumper on the back of the car. You can just leave the car upside down and just offer it up like this. Make sure the rear hinge pins are captured by the bumper, and you can screw in the bottom screws. Now we can flip the chassis back over and install the top bumper loop screws from the top down through the bumper loop, and then for the second screw. Step 48 is now complete. On to bag 14. This is the wheels and tyres. So we have the 4 MOJAVE D-Boots Fortress tyres in the packet with the exclusive black rims that come with the RTA, and then we've got the 4 wheel nuts. Just open this packet here, pop the 4 wheel nuts down, and then we're good to go. It's simply installing the wheels onto the truck chassis. There is a hex in the wheel and hex here. Drop it down, rotate the wheel until it aligns with the hex, and then we install the wheel nut. There is a serration on the wheel nut. The serration needs to be down facing the wheel itself, and we can use our wheel wrench tool just to snug these down. This is part of the build where you can put a little bit more torque into these nuts, something that is quite a strong metal on metal wheel nut here, so we can just crank these down a little bit more than other screws on this build. That concludes step number 49, and it's finally looking like a vehicle.